Oi oi girls and boys and everything in between, it's Ace Trainer Liam, and today I want to talk about Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch. Now, as you can tell from the title of this video, it's actually going to be a little bit more towards the negative side of things, but don't worry, don't panic. Next week we're going to be talking about why Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch might just be the best Pokemon games of all time. I thought I'd get the negative out the way first, then the positives, but I guess it depends what order you're watching these videos in, if they've already been out for more than a week, I don't know, but whatever. Ultimately today I'm just going to go through 5 reasons why I think there is that little bit of fear, that little bit of kind of worry in my mind that maybe these games won't quite live up to the hype that's being generated around them. I should point out before we start the facts that we know about this game. All we know so far, for definite, from the word of Game Freak themselves, is that it's going to be a main series core RPG coming out this year or later. And to be fair, later could mean 2019. Later could mean 2025. We just don't know. All we know is that there is a Nintendo Switch Pokemon game in progress. Don't know what it's about. Well, we know it's about Pokemon, but I mean, we don't know what region it's based in. We don't know what the region's based off. We don't know what the story's going to be. We don't know any elements. We don't even know the titles of the games. At the moment, the games are untitled Pokemon Switch game. That's it. That's all we've got. So there's not a lot that we know, but there is a lot of speculation going around at the moment. But regardless of that, I'm going to talk today about 5 reasons why these games may just not hit your expectations. And of course, just a reminder, I will be talking about the positives next week, so don't worry too much if I say something that you really massively disagree with, because who knows, I might talk about that exact point in the next video. But anywho, let's jump straight into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the potential for Game Freak to try and take things a little bit easier. Maybe to not really push the boat out in terms of the story, in terms of the game in general, and basically give us a really cookie cutter version of a Pokemon game. Now, what I mean is, if we look back to the birth of the Nintendo 3DS, the first games that were on the Nintendo 3DS were Pokemon X and Pokemon Y. And even though I think they're a great generation of Pokemon, the games themselves have been universally panned for being too linear, too easy, not a lot of imagination going into them, even though, I mean, technically we got Mega Evolution out of it, which was pretty imaginative for the time, but I can understand why people don't think that the Kalos adventures are that interesting an arc in the Pokemon video game story franchise. I get that. Basically, there is a concern that because they took it so easy when they did the Nintendo 3DS. I mean, I say easy, like thousands of hours of work went into these games and no one really gives people credit for that. There is this consensus that the games were kind of phoned in. There weren't a lot of Pokemon added compared to what we'd seen in recent games. I think at the time, it was the lowest amount of Pokemon that had ever been added in a new generation, and that kind of knocked people a little bit. And also, the idea that the story was too linear. The story just basically went, here's the direction, go for it. It was a very generic Pokemon game, very, very simplified Pokemon game. And even though it was the first Pokemon game in 3D in terms of the main series, it was also a bit disappointing because people found it was a really short game and it was just too easy. And there is the potential for the Nintendo Switch Pokemon game to go down that path because it's the first game on a brand new console, and Game Freak very well might think, well, let's not try and complicate the story. Let's not try and take things in too different of a direction to what we normally do with Pokemon games, because then the fans might not like it that much. So if we just stick to a very generic Pokemon story, you know, the 8 gyms and the Pokemon League and an evil team with a really simple idea for what they want to do, just they want to destroy the world or something like that, and we've got to stop them. Really simple Pokemon adventure. I feel like that's the kind of route they might go down, because they don't want to, with them venturing onto a new console, they might not want to go too complex, too complicated on the story and add too many things in on top of the basic Pokemon model, because that might just be a little bit of overkill in their mind. And this isn't something that Game Freak are exactly shy about doing, because we saw that in Pokemon X and Y, where it almost feels a little bit phoned in. On the other hand, my next point is like the complete opposite of that, where basically there's the potential for Pokemon to push the limits of the Nintendo Switch console and ultimately make a game that doesn't perform very well. So what I mean by this is, a perfect example is Game Freak have been quoted in interviews as saying, when we created Pokemon X and Y on the Nintendo 3DS, we were pushing the limits of what the 3DS console could do, and then we pushed it a little bit more with Auras, and then by the time Sun and Moon rolled around, and especially Ultra Sun and Moon, we were literally pushing the limits of the 3DS further than that console was supposed to go. Like, the mechanics they had involved and the things they had going on screen, according to Game Freak, were too advanced for the console that they were on. Now, the problem there is, and a lot of people have seen it, that when you're having a double battle with the sandstorm in effect or something in Pokemon Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon, sometimes the battle screen can get very, very laggy. With the Nintendo Switch, realistically, we can't really see anyone really creating a game that is too powerful for it at this stage. But then again, if Pokemon have such a habit of going, here's a new console, let's push this as far as it'll go, and then let's push it so much further that it might not even be able to perform properly, what's to say they won't do it with the Switch? What's to say, instead of making a phoned-in game, like we were talking about in point 1, instead of making a game that is very, very simple, they go, let's make it super complicated. Let's add in loads of extra side quests and just extra data here and there. Let's add 150, no, let's add 200 new Pokemon to the mix. Let's create all these different forms of other Pokemon. Let's increase the graphical quality tenfold and recreate all 807 or whatever Pokemon we have now, plus the new 200, all brand new 3D models, all completely like really good quality graphics, really amazing quality. Rather than the cell shaded, we're going to go for the same kind of graphics that the Pokémon team used and go with that kind of style and just really, really plug as much into this game as possible and then ultimately make a game that does not perform the way we want it to. It's a worry because you've got, on the one hand, as I said, you got the worry that they'll make a game that is kind of low effort. I don't really like saying low effort, but you know what I mean, like a much simpler game, like a very simple basic version of a Pokemon game. It's on the new console, it looks a little bit better. Or they could overdo it and try too hard to impress the players and ultimately make a game that can't perform on its own console, which is a worry. I mean, we might not see that with Gen 8, but we might see a game that they consider to be too complex for the system that it's on, and then Generation 9, Generation 10, continuing to increase how much capability they can force the Nintendo Switch to try and use. It's a little bit complex, and I don't think it'll happen, but it is always a little concern in the back of my mind. Thirdly, there's a concern that maybe it'll just be a bad generation. Maybe we do finally get a Pokemon region based on England, and do you know what? That would be really boring. Like, the more I've thought about a Pokemon region based on the United Kingdom, for example, I've thought it just would be boring. Like, I don't know what England looks like to people who live outside the UK, but it's a really boring, mundane place, and really, apart from knife crime, not a lot really happens. So I'm not saying I've got no insider information. I'm not saying it's going to be based on the UK, but I'm just saying, for example, if the region was based on the United Kingdom, we'd probably find quite a boring region, and I'm worried that maybe this generation might be a little bit on the boring side. You would think they'd push the boat out for Generation 8, but don't forget what the company and what the creators think might be the next exciting thing for the new generation might not be the kind of things that the fans and the players were actually looking for. I mean, we were really spoiled in terms of regions with Alola because it was beautiful. It was a lovely tropical paradise. And before that, we had the Kalos region, which was based on France, and it was absolutely gorgeous. But there's the potential that if we do move to something like, I don't know, like Manchester, England or something, it's just going to be really boring and gloomy and dark and just not really the kind of Pokemon game with the bright colours and the fun and the positivity that we're really looking for. And similar to what I was saying in the previous point about them potentially increasing the roster of Pokemon by like 150, 200 Pokemon, there's nothing to say they won't do the opposite. There's nothing to say they won't go, well, we're working so hard to put this game on a brand new console, and you guys liked the Alola region, even though it had like, I don't know, what, 50 new Pokemon at best, if that? Maybe we'll just introduce, 20 to 30 new Pokemon in this generation, but at least they'll be in brand new graphics, and all the other graphics of all the other 807 Pokemon are all completely redesigned and redone, and that's where the majority of the work's gone. And then you have a lackluster generation because you kind of have a boring region, a random small selection of Pokemon, and then what's to say the story might not be boring? Like, it might just be a really lackluster story where everyone just kind of goes, I mean, I don't really agree with the evil team, but at the same time, they're not a very exciting evil team, and maybe it does end up being a very, very generic generation, much like I was saying in my first point, where it's like maybe it is just a case of, oh look, there's 8 gyms and an evil team, and now you've won the Pokemon League. There's just an absolute fear that the generation could be lackluster because no one seems to be considering this. Everybody's going, oh my god, I'm so excited for Pokemon Switch. Oh my god, I can't wait for Pokemon Switch to come out. It's going to be the best Pokemon game ever. And nobody's sitting there going, I mean, the story could be garbage, and the region could be boring, and they could add barely any new Pokemon. I mean, there is potential for this to be a really lackluster generation. I mean, look at the way Generation 7 was received. Gen 7, everyone was excited. The hype train was rolling all the way through 2016. Then the games came out, we played the games, and how many people now are going, didn't really like Alola? You hear it a lot. You hear it a lot more than I kind of expect, because I kind of like Alola. I quite like it. The story, I've played it too many times, and I don't think it's a bad story. I just think I'm bored of that story, and I'm bored of playing through Alola over and over again, as I've said before. I don't think it's the games that are bad. I think it's the fact that I've overplayed them. But then again, a lot of people are genuinely like, I didn't like Alola as a region. I didn't like the new Pokemon. I didn't like the story. I thought it was weak and all that jazz. And what if that happens with Generation 8? Just because it's on a brand new console, just because it's on the Nintendo Switch, doesn't mean that it's going to be a guaranteed hit with the hardcore fans, with the bigger audience, even with the casual fans. Casual fans might not even pick it up. It's one of those things where this generation does have the potential to be bad, and we have to recognize that. Next up, I want to talk about mechanics. What I'm worried about is the battle system. Because what we've seen, especially with a lot of Japanese games lately, is a shift from turn-based battles to a more active battle system. I'm talking about like the difference between Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy XIII, for example, where you go from full-on turn-based action, where everybody has a turn, it's in a set order, you have to select what move you want to use out of a particular list of menus, and then compared to Final Fantasy XIII, where basically everything is pretty much automated and you just slam the circle button over and over again, or the X button, whatever button it is in 13. It's in Final Fantasy 15 where you just basically, I spend most of my time in battles just slamming the circle button, just like, wow, doing a few things, occasionally do a little warp move, wonderful. And I worry that the essence of Pokemon, which is very much turn-based battles in my opinion, is going to be altered. They're going to go, it's a brand new console, there's no better time than now to change the battle system. If we're going to switch anything up, because it's the Nintendo Switch, let's switch up the battles into an active battle mode, where you send your Pokemon out, and then you are in control of its moves, you have to block, you have to parry moves and things like that, and you have to choose when to Thunderbolt, and you can only change it to Thunder at a later time, or something like that. I worry that they're going to make the battle system something more similar. They're not going to make, obviously they're not going to make it like Pokémon. They're not going to make it a combination battle system or anything like that, but I do think it's very much going to be an active battle system where you are no longer in a turn-based battle. You have to think on your feet. The battles are happening in real time and you're having to trigger moves, avoid moves, kind of in the way that you do in Pokemon Go, where you have to dodge moves. I mean, obviously, I expect a better battle system than that, because that one's garbage. But, you know, dodging moves, blocking moves, and then attacking when there's an opening, and things like that, and then obviously jumping into the menu to use a healing item or something as you're going along. I do worry about that, because a lot of people would say, Pokemon will never change. Pokemon will never stop being turn-based, and you're like, there is kind of a feeling with a lot of games companies, especially games companies that are 20 years old, that maybe they need to get with the times. Maybe we need to move on to something different and switch things up. And there's, as I say, there's no greater time than now for Pokemon to switch up the battle system. But I just really don't want them to. I don't want them to, because I feel like the turn-based battles is such a core mechanic of the Pokemon games that I feel like if they got rid of that, it wouldn't feel like a Pokemon game, and I'm really, really worried about that. And finally, the most important reason that I think maybe Pokemon and Nintendo Switch will suck is you guys. Now, don't get offended. It's all of us together, technically. It's the whole Pokemon community that's the problem, and that really is down to the hype that we're putting around this game. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very excited for these games, and it's okay to be excited for these games. Granted, we don't know a lot about them, as I said earlier. We don't know much apart from the fact that they're being made. We don't even have names for them yet. However, the amount of hype that's being built around these games is borderline insane. We're building hype towards a game that we know nothing about. All we know is it's going to be a Pokemon game. Now, bearing in mind, this is the weird thing. This is the thing I don't understand, okay? Is everybody is excited for Pokemon on the Switch, yet we literally just had the most anticipated Pokemon games in a very long time in the forms of Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon back in 2016. They were so heavily anticipated, so hyped. The Pokemon community was all over these games getting excited, looking at leaks, looking at rumors, looking at everything that they possibly could to find more info about these games back in 2016. The games came out, and now all you get from people is people going, I'm really bored of Alola. I don't like Alola. Gen 7 wasn't even that good of a generation. Okay, so if the previous games disappointed you so much, how are you so excited for the next one? Like, I don't understand it. That's like watching Star Wars Episode 2, right? Which is easily the worst Star Wars ever, and going, wow, I really didn't like that movie. Can't wait for the next one though. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And on top of that, we are getting our expectations way out of proportion. Like, I talked to Joe from Cerebi a lot about this. People are just getting way too excited. Like, there'll be a Nintendo Direct, for example, and people will tell themselves that we're going to get Pokemon news. Pokemon won't say anything. Pokemon will not announce a single thing. And then people will go into this Nintendo Direct expecting Pokemon news, and then when they don't get it, they go, oh, well, that's typical Pokemon letting us down. How have they let you down? They didn't even say that they were going to be doing anything in that Direct. They didn't officially announce anything. I don't get it, because, you know, you've seen your favorite YouTubers say, well, there's definitely going to be some Pokemon news in this Nintendo Direct because I saw a post on 4chan that said it would be there. What? How, unless there's an official source explaining that there's officially going to be Pokemon news in the next Nintendo Direct, or even a tweet from the Pokemon company going, make sure you check out the Nintendo Direct because, you know, we reckon you're going to enjoy it, then there's no reason to think that there's going to be anything Pokemon related in there. So don't get your hopes up for something that has yet to exist. It doesn't make any sense. We're getting angry at Game Freak. Well, I say we, I'm not. Like, I'm being sensible about this, but some of you are getting angry at Game Freak for not bringing the games out soon enough, or for not doing announcements in a certain month because your favorite YouTuber has gone, there's definitely going to be a Pokemon announcement this month. I can feel it, guys. Guys, are you ready? Everybody retweet this because I think there's going to be a Pokemon announcement this month. And then you guys get all hyped going, oh my god, my favorite YouTuber said there's going to be an announcement, which means there definitely will be, because there's absolutely no way that YouTuber might have zero insider information. I definitely think that because he said this in a tweet, or she said this in a tweet, that, hey, there's definitely going to be news, because why would they say something in a video to clickbait me into watching the video? That why would they do that to me? They wouldn't do that to me, would they? There's definitely going to be news, and then no news happens and you guys go, oh, Game Freak. Really? Fancy letting us down, Game Freak? And I just think it's a really toxic kind of attitude to have. Like, let Game Freak, this is what we need to do, okay? This is what we need to do. We need to let Game Freak announce these games when they're ready. By all means, we can be excited, we can speculate, we can say, hey, I'm really excited for these games, or hey, I really hope the new starters are based on these creatures, or I really hope the region is based on this region. That's okay. But getting angry at Game Freak for not making announcements that they've not said they're going to announce, that's stupid. That's crazy, and it's toxic behavior, and we need to stop doing it. We just need to let Game Freak bring us these games at the time and at the rate that they feel is necessary, that is in line with their vision. Because ultimately, if the game comes out this year, great, I'm excited, I'm gonna play it. If it doesn't come out till next year, I don't mind. I just want them to be the best games they can be. It's as simple as that. Honestly, I just feel like after 22 years of entertaining us, the Pokemon Company has kind of earned our respect, okay? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be the moral compass of YouTube, because let's face it, I'm Ace Trainer Liam, like, I'm not a great person. However, at least listen to me when I say, let's show the Pokemon Company some respect. Let's respect them in the sense of, let's go, hey, you know what? For 22 years, you've brought me so many games that I love, and thank you for that. When you release your next game, I will buy it, and I'll be excited to buy it. But only release information on it when you're ready. and I won't get angry at you for not releasing information. Let's go with that. Let's be nice to the Pokemon Company. Let's be positive. Let's do good things for once instead of just arguing with each other about information that's not yet been released. Let's stop believing leaks when they happen, when they're just rumors. Let's not assume things are official until they come from the official source, Game Freak or Pokemon. And let's just enjoy ourselves in the meantime. And ultimately, my point, talking about all this overhype and how it relates to the Nintendo Switch Pokemon games potentially sucking, is the fact that if we're so hyped and so built up about these games, what happens when those games don't live up to those false expectations that we've made ourselves? We're gonna be disappointed, which is why we need to be more well-rounded people and just sit and let Pokemon bring us the information at their own pace. Because if we get ourselves too hyped, then these games will definitely suck, because you'll have an expectation of a game that was never supposed to exist. If we just stick to being hyped on a level of, I'm excited for these games to come out, I can't wait for new information, it's going to be great, just stay at that level, rather than putting your expectations up here when there's been no reason for them to be up there at this point. Let's just cut Game Freak some slack, okay? Now, if you've enjoyed this discussion and you want to talk a little bit more about it, jump in the comments. Let me know if there are any reasons that I haven't brought up that make you think that Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch has the potential to suck. Don't forget, this isn't all negative. Next week, I'll be countering this video with 5 reasons why the Pokemon Nintendo Switch game is going to be the best Pokemon game we've ever seen, potentially. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, it helps me out massively, and of course hit the subscribe button if you're new so you don't miss a video from me. Turn on the little notification bell and click the all notifications button, because apparently you can't just click and subscribe anymore, it's weird. But thank you very much for your time and for watching. I'll see you very soon, but until then, I'm Ace Trainer Liam. Keep on training.